Here we go. This one's I'm copying this. It's called "Good Cop Calls Out Bad Cops," and it's from C.J. Grissom. And I'll put the link below. I'm going to make my comments now and after. Good cop. Well, I'll just say it's a good person speaking his mind about what he sees and what he's dealing with in the real world of reality. And I'm sure he has violated his own oath, and I don't care what anybody says. They can mock me for it, and that's fine. But the good thing is he is speaking the truth because he has a conviction of morality, and his heart and his mind are working together. And they're actually working in unison because he sees the ills that what's going on around him, and he knows in his heart and mind that it's wrong. He knows what he's doing and what he's being ordered to do is wrong. He sees what others are doing in his field to make a living, what they're doing. And he knows in his heart and his mind he is wrong. And it's bothering him. It's bothering him real bad. So he's having to get it off his chest to the public to let them know how at least he feels himself. And as a matter of fact, I challenge, this is a challenge, not from him, but from Heoka, Chief Big Mouth. I want to see other officers speaking their mind, giving their convictions of who they really are. If you want the public's trust, not only you're going to have to get up there and humble yourself, you're going to have to belittle yourself a little bit. And that says a lot about G. Anderson. That shows a tremendous amount of courage and self-dignity, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Now, I'm not going to call him a COP. He is a man wearing a costume and a badge, which is a medallion. It's his job to make a living. Don't take it any other than that. Your job does not trump people's rights, nor does it trump your opinions or your feelings or your emotions or your political ideologies when you're in that costume. They are all null and void, including losing your job and maybe losing your house and your income. That does not become anything before the freedoms of people. And he's going to talk about a sleeping giant. Well, let's just say this, America. The giant has been awoken. The giant just hasn't gotten up yet out of bed. Now, I would start lullabying the giant to go back to sleep before it gets out of bed. Because once the giant's out of bed, there's no turning back, ladies and gentlemen. Once it starts, and he'll tell you, we will fight like hell to diligently attain our birthrights. Their birthrights come from whatever creator you want to call it. So, you best pay attention. And again, I'm calling out the other so-called costume wearers to get up there, humble yourself, and prove to the public you're with us. Otherwise, Well, you know how the saying goes, right? Right. Because I don't have to say it. Here we go.
As a police officer, I'm compelled to make this video. I've been in law enforcement for 10 years, and I'm speaking to my peers, other fellow officers, people in any kind of law enforcement position. I've seen officers nationwide enforcing tyrannical orders against the people, and I'm hoping it's the minority of officers, but I'm not sure anymore. Every time I turn on the television, every time I look to the internet, I'm seeing people arrested or cited for going to church, for traveling on the roadways, for going surfing, opening their businesses, going to the park with their families, or doing nails out of their own house, using their own house as a place of business, and having undercover agents go there and arrest them and charge them with what? With a crime? I don't know what crime people are committing by doing nails in their own house, but we're seeing this more and more and more, and we need to start looking at ourselves as officers and thinking, is what I'm doing right? Now, I want to remind you that regardless of where you stand on the coronavirus, we don't have the authority to do those things to people just because a mayor or a governor tells you otherwise. I don't care if it's your sergeant or your chief of police. We don't get to violate people's constitutional rights.
Amen.
Because somebody in our chain of command tells us otherwise. It's not how this country works.
Absolutely.
Those are de facto arrests.
Absolutely.
You know, we're violating people's rights.
Correct.
And taking money from them, or even worse, arresting them and depriving them of their freedom.
Absolutely.
When they are exercising their constitutional rights.
Right.
So let's talk about that. Let's read something right here off of the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. Among these, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their power from the consent of the governed, meaning our power and any government official's power is derived from the people. Okay? We don't hold power over our citizens.
No, you do not.
It's contradictory to everything that our country stands for.
And has been doing.
And this is what I'm seeing. First Amendment rights. Telling people they can't go to church. Freedom of religion. Okay? Telling people they can't protest. Freedom of assembly. Fourth Amendment violations. Illegal traffic stops to check for papers. What are you, the Gestapo? Is this 1930s Nazi Germany?
Stasi
You don't
land.
get to stop people unless you have reasonable suspicion or probable cause that they have committed a crime. And I know people that have personally been stopped saying, we want to see papers showing that you're essential. That is not how our job works. Okay?
Exactly.
What really has been pissing me off lately is the fact that these officers that are going out here and enforcing these tyrannical orders, what they're doing is they're making my job and my safety, or they're putting my job and my safety at risk. Because what you're doing is you're widening the gap between public trust and law enforcement officers. And what that's going to do is it's going to, I mean, look at what's happened to law enforcement in the last 10 years. Less and less public trust, and more often than not, that is a result of isolated incidents that get blown out of proportion. They're not isolated anymore. They're happening every single day. And the thing that I want you guys to realize is that our power that we hold as law enforcement officers is nothing more than a facade. It's a badge and a gun.
Absolutely.
And people, you don't realize, if you haven't lived in anarchy, if you haven't seen combat, things can be stripped from people in a heartbeat. And that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that these actions are going to wake a sleeping giant, i.e. the American people.
Oh.
Okay? They are going to be put in a position where they won't have their rights trampled anymore.
They will lose the fear of what has been created and realize who they truly are and will exercise their authority they have as Americans and will set a precedence and will let you know who's in charge. Believe me. Believe me. And I mean it.
And us as law enforcement officers, we'll have our ability to enforce the law stripped from us
instantly
in about 10 minutes. Okay.
And guess what? It should be. Because what you guys have been doing, because of a lot of factors, well, unfortunately, a lot of you have become criminals because of the people you work for. That makes you an accessory to the crimes. So unless you actually stand with the people, then you're a part of the problem that he's talking about.
Okay. I think what is going to happen if this continues is we're going to see bloodshed in the streets. Okay. I don't want to see bloodshed in the streets on either side of this coin. I don't want to see fellow officers get injured or killed, and I certainly don't want to see citizens get injured or killed.
There is no side of a coin, bud. That's where I'll disagree with you. It's us and us. You are part of the public. You have a job. It's a job. And it shouldn't be taking any farther than that. When you know in your mind and your heart and you know the rules and you violate those rules, you're not a part of our side anymore. And that's how that works. Soon as you commit treason against the very people you're serving, then you're no part of that side now that you are a two-sided coin. Okay? That's how that works, Mr. Anderson.
And I promise you, most of you out there doing these tyrannical acts against our citizens, you're not ready for combat. You're not mentally or physically ready for combat in the first place. I promise you, you don't want to go through that. And I hope I never have to go through that again.
None of us do. War is bullshit. It's for the oligarchs. That's what war is about. All of us fighting their stupid wars and die, killing each other, killing somebody that we did nothing to and they did nothing to us personally on an individual level. It's the people at the top having their little issues. It's gang violence on a grand scale, ladies and gentlemen. That's what war is. And you've been fooled into it for thousands of years. And you've been getting thrusted into killing each other when you had nothing to do and nothing to fight with the person that you're trying to murder and vice versa. And to add to more insult to the mind of the human being, that's a form of insanity. And I'm not saying you don't need a military and this and that, which if we trusted each other and not the fucking criminals that are getting us to murder each other, maybe we wouldn't really have to have a fucking military. If you actually look back in human history, most of society has always gotten along pretty damn well, except for the thugs or the dictators, the ones that hire their gangs and call them armies or whatever you want to call it, all up until the 17, maybe 16, 1500s, something like that. Well, we really didn't have big crazy shit. Look at the Romans. What did it do for them? All it did was destroy their empire because they were always at war. And when you're always at war, let's say I take my neighbor's country over. Well, now all our neighbors are now my enemy and a fear of me. So now that just creates more war. Then you have these bankers, financiers that love to fund both sides and watch us murder each other while they benefit from both of us. Yes, fund us into to destroying our nations. And that's what they're doing right now, too. This is a form of war, ladies and gentlemen. And people don't get it. This guy should get it, too. If he's been in the military, he should know that war is not just fucking wearing a green uniform or a camo uniform and holding a gun and shooting bad guys, okay? Where is the level of intelligence in human society that you people can't figure what the fuck is going on around you and how this pecking order is really working? It's a mind game, and they're controlling your minds, and you don't even know it. And you won't even stop and question about what the hell is going on really around you by the people we don't even know pulling the strings, conning us into doing shit. Yes. Whatever.
You don't get to just say, well, I'm doing this because I was told to do so, or I'm following orders, or I need to keep this job. Guess what? I need to keep this job more than anybody. I have 3 young children. I have 2 houses. Like, I have the same sob story that the rest of you guys have. But my personal choices and my living arrangements, no matter what they are, don't allow me to trample on people's rights. And I don't understand why that concept is so hard for people to understand.
Yeah, it's real because they just follow orders. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I just want to be a do-gooder. Yeah, 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 yeah. Rah, rah, rah. Yeah. Ha. It's sad. It's sad that what we've become. It truly is. Once upon a time, I had a brother. They had his job. He was a police officer for 20 years. He had kidney failure and he passed away. He started in the early 70s. And people can take this however they want, but I'm going to just say this, and I've been watching this, because of the minority organization groups and the women's lib groups. Police officers had a very extremely high standard to pass to become a police officer, and for good reason. It's like my uncle was a highway patrolman. He retired, but when he became a highway patrolman, he just came out of the Navy, and this was from Korean era, and you had to be 5'10", you couldn't have any pear-shaped bodies whatsoever. You like that? No fat boys. And guess what? You couldn't have any kind of convictions, maybe a misdemeanor, and that had to be very specific, what kind of misdemeanor that was. And you had to be married. How about that one? You had to be married. And you know what? I want the man in the costume with a medallion on his chest to have the strictest, most hardest qualifications to become a police officer, not only physically, mentally, because they're carrying a gun, a weapon, and they can use it on the public and people can get hurt or accidentally get shot from their actions, and they have the force of the government behind them. So, yes, I would definitely want my police officers to have the highest qualifications to have to pass to become a police officer. And guess what they did? So that these people could get their jobs, because they claimed that they were too hard and I couldn't get a job because they're too strict. Raise the qualifications again, and we'll get some quality people back in there. Because right now, they'll almost hire a fucking felon today.
Listen, you need to stand up for what's right. You need to, if you're part of a department or an agency that is asking people or asking their officers or their deputies to impose on people's rights and infringe on their freedoms, you need
tell them to go fuck off.
You need to step up and say, no, that's not me. That's not what I signed up for, and that's going against my oath. And if that costs you your job, so be it.
Exactly.
At least you'll be able to look at yourself in the mirror at night. I've already expressed this to my department. And luckily for me, I come from a department that I feel like my chain of command shares my view.
I hope they do.
I don't care what department you're part of or what your chain of command thinks. You don't get to trample on people's liberty. And so, as a special operations veteran, I fought on the streets of Iraq under the U.S. government's guise of freedom. And I'm telling you what, the American people are going to you are going to wake a sleeping giant. And they are going to fight 10 times harder for their freedom on their soil than anything you've ever seen before.
Oh, yes, we will.
And if that's something you're willing to face, then keep trampling on people's rights. But I promise you, the American spirit of defiance is going to rise again, and it's going to be a big problem for our country.
Yes, it is.
I'll leave you with this, something that I learned as an E-nothing in the Army. No matter what situation you're put in, if you look inside yourself and ask yourself one question, am I doing the right thing? You ask yourself that, you know the answer. And no amount of money or no order or law or anything should be able to make you go against doing the right thing. So I'm imploring officers to look inside themselves and ask themselves, is this what I want to be doing to my citizens? And I think the answer is clear. And if we all stand up together, guess what?
We are a force together that the oligarchs cannot touch. You know that.
Be a non-issue, no factor, because people and law enforcement will be united like we should be.
And that's a fact. We should be. And to the officers out there, corporate officers for incorporated cities or constitutional sheriffs, it is your duty. You are as the citizen, you. This is why we also have you, or we wouldn't have you. You are our first and last defense against tyrannical government. Peace officers. That's what you're supposed to be, peace officers. And until a complaint is also filed from a citizen, then law and due justice is nothing. There is no police enforcement. That is tyrannical. You're supposed to be sitting around on your asses until you're called upon, like the paramedics. Hello? You'll find you'll have a more peaceful society when we have to go get the cops to come and help us, to keep the peace, to make sure that people don't fight, don't have troubles. And when the crime happens, then you'll go and do your job. It's just that simple. It's been turned into a Gestapo, Stasi-style type of regime with this mindset that's been going on. And it's a sad reality. And people are starting to really, really get fucking tired of it. Not only at that level, the government's level too, that's what they're forcing you guys to do. With their draconian policies and laws that they're passing. They are nothing. If those people, they're nothing unless you guys keep enforcing it for them. And until you stop enforcing their bullshit that they're shoving down the people's neck, well, then you're just like them. And you're not like them. You are one of us. Remember that. And if you turn on us, well, just like he said, when that sleeping giant gets out of the bed, because it's awake right now, and it's contemplating on what it's going to do once it gets out of bed.